Hello, everybody. It is me, Pacific. Happy Friday, everybody. Well, in trying to think about something to talk about, something kept coming up over and over and over, and it was culture. We talk a lot about culture on this channel, don't we? Culture of Christian culture, the culture of American culture, Chinese culture, Philippine culture, female culture, man cave culture, Pacific culture, you name it. The Bible says, be not Wait a minute. Let me say that again. The Bible says, be not conformed to the patterns of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. But there's the rub. Not easy to do. Does anybody find themselves having a hard time just living up to that simple, take that verse, just stand it alone and tell me how well you're doing? Let's talk about, the Bible says, let no unwholesome talk come out of your mouth, profanity, coarse jesting. And as one of the most sarcastic nations around, we know how to fling it right back. We've been trained that way, right? How about culture of loneliness? MGTOW people refer to it as true forced loneliness. How about if you don't do these things, you're going to be lonely because they will alienate, shun, and keep you out of the group. For example, I was talking with a woman yesterday and she goes, for people like us who don't drink, she goes, it's hard when you don't fit in. But I quickly touched her shoulder and I said, but do you want to fit in with that? She goes, I don't. I said, neither do I. But it's tough. Something that hit me the last couple days is I've been listening to Chinese and Mongolian and Tibetan music with that stringed instrument called the zither. I look at the way the Chinese women are dressed. The Asian women, they're stunningly beautiful. Beautiful long hair, beautiful colorful dresses and outfits. And I realize that everybody has their own interest. But I, for a long time, have had a personal belief that our interest over here, and this is just my opinion, that a lot of our interest over here, especially in pop culture and movie and TV culture, is just on a slide. That the sobering reality is hitting Pacific that there's a lot of people that don't like nice anymore. They don't like wholesome. They don't like nice. I grew up with, our TV was Andy Griffith Show, Leave It to Beaver, One Adam 12, Chips, where the bad guy lost, the good guy won, and the hardworking dad was respected. The stay-at-home mother was not looked down on, to now hot-looking women in sports bras eating centipedes and leeches and all that on reality TV, to in-your-face fascination with gross, obscene, crude, crass. We've become jaded, without a conscience in some cases, calloused. In fact, even having our conscience seared as with a hot iron. I submit to my viewers I'm more tolerant of things now than I was just 15 years ago. Things that I would have emphatically said that is wrong. And still believe it's wrong. But we become more tolerating. We tend to live alongside of it and become more less hard about it. When I look at Chinese videos and see the way the women are dressed, no cleavage, no sexuality, but beautiful expression, movement, dancing, singing, happy countenances, and it suddenly hits me, Pacific, these women are doing this in communist China. One video, Song Zuing and Tang Kan, Dragon Boat song, a whole plethora of cast in there, men and women. And Dragon Boat is a cute little song where the women are saying, is there anybody to ferry me to the other side? And the men are saying, I'll ferry you to the other side. Contrasted to Lady Gaga, Miley Cyrus, Katy Perry, and our sleazy, debased, uncouth, classless, self-centered, anemic culture. In fact, to speak out against this culture today is to guarantee you an inheritance for mocking, laughter, ridicule, scorn, alienation. That when I take the time to listen to beautiful music, I notice a difference mentally. And we jump over to that other stuff that we're familiar with. And you go, it doesn't evoke class. We're supposed to be transformed by the renewing of our mind. But then we have physiological and biological things fighting with us all the time. We work, we labor, we're tired. We want the touch. Us men, anyway, want the touch of a woman. And the women are not to be found. At least the kind we want. And what are we asking for? Are we asking for Barbie? No. Are we asking for Pamela Anderson? No. Anywhere in America, a woman can post a post, and it will have 50 responses immediately of every man vying for her attention. And it doesn't matter, as Pacific did a experiment posting a hugely obese woman, who in the descriptive of that woman in the post that I made up, breasts the size of big red rubber balls, 5 children, all my exes left me and nobody pays child support, 5 cats, 2 dogs, and a bunch of parakeets, and 50 people respond. Contrast to the average guy, and he'll get nothing. If you post anything satirical to try to make a point to the females out there, it will be flagged immediately, because as I said before, American women can handle truth, and that is something you can take to the bank. The culture that we live in bears down heavily upon us. Men have written me and said, I can't get a date because I don't have a car. I ride the bus or I walk. Shallow culture, isn't it? It's funny, as I age and I look around at people my age running into physical problems, I stop and think, boy, we think we're pretty bulletproof when we're young and feeling good. And most people, most of my audience doesn't look at the elderly and think, one day you're going to be like that. Sitting in a chair fussing about everything, worried about everything, losing your strength, losing your vitality, watching your skin wrinkle, sag, and flab. We forget that. And paraded in front of our eyes, prancing around in front of our eyes, are scantily clad women that are pouring it on to tease us, to seduce us. And as soon as you start to come to her beckoning, she turns and runs and says no. One thing I respect with Asian culture is something I heard women say. I said, how do you handle, as a very good-looking young woman, as a domestic helper for the couple, and when the wife's gone and that man who's married with his sour-faced Chinese wife, who is not expressive, demonstrative, warm, sees this brown-skinned, sleeveless shirt Filipina busying around the kitchen and prancing through the house doing her duties, how do you deal with the man advancing upon you? And my friend and date at the time, one of them told me, I don't send off that. When the man come up to me in the kitchen, I said, please don't bump into me. Don't get close to me. He puts chocolates and little gifts outside of her door. And she says, thank you. And she looked at me and said, I can understand why he would come on to me. His wife is cold. His wife is materialistic and rude. And I said, well, sounds like over here in America. But our culture of women tease and lead on. And it's gotten so bad now. The basic kindness is disappearing. And when you go into a business or you go into a place and you frequent a place, and whether it's a teller at a bank or a waitress in a restaurant, hi, hon, how are you? And you look, oh, no ring on her finger, and she's always smiling and nice to you until you come on to her. That we guys have been so conditioned by the culture of today's women that when a woman is nice, we think, oh, maybe she's into me. No, she's just being nice. Something that most American women took a hike on decades ago. It's funny, but our culture, if we don't stop back and take a look at it, will unwittingly play into its hands. There is a progression of evil. Then when we start doing this, then it makes it easier to become more tolerant of that. That communist, atheist, Christ-denying China that is not a free country, that even the women in those videos that have stardom, have beautiful voices, are not whoring themselves out there and showing up sleazy on the stage. And we are the free country. And women are destroying themselves, as I said in the video. Western women are destroying themselves, tattoos, piercings. And Pacific finds himself saying, gosh, even if a woman was tattooed and pierced and was attractive and liked me, I'd probably say, let's go out. The diminishing returns of our own society makes us lower our standard. I talked the other day about the culture of music. None of us in America can claim we're not affected by it. We deeply are. Some of us entrenched in it. on my way to work, I put on classical music and I notice a difference. I find myself saying, you know what, let's try this. And then I watch these Asian videos with pretty ladies. Yes, ladies. And I look at our American women pop icons and they're anything but lady. Lady Gaga is a misnomer. She's Gaga, gross, but no lady. But the sad thing is we can get so immunized, or should I say anesthetized, by the culture that we start going, ooh, I like the sound of this. Yeah, but are you listening to the words? That because of a culture of popularity, Elton John, Benny and the Jets, Elton John single-handedly has made gay stuff more acceptable because his music is so loved and adored by so many. And as I said the other day, music is the Pied Piper. Music is the Trojan horse that showed up at the front door. Music is the Nebuchadnezzarian way to get us to bow and to worship the beast, the enemy of our own souls. That we can clap, adore, discuss about how good a band is, but ask them about their belief in Jesus Christ and they'll look at you and go, what? I look in on black culture. I look in on Hispanic culture. I look in on Asian culture. And they're all changing. Not for the better. That the comment I make about American women wanting men with money is now becoming a dominant theme with any American ethnic woman. Asians here are hungry for money and bank accounts and status. I refer back to the Korean gal I dated when I first moved back here. She had accepted me. Surprisingly, with all my flaws, and even my beliefs that are very contrary to hers, me being conservative, her being liberal. But her family? Why at his age he don't own his own business? You got 49 years to talk about that, partner? That they were in the medical profession both and did very well, have their own private golf course, have a house in Idaho and one in Vegas. And the inheritance that they bestowed on their daughter was what helped her to buy a very upper-end property in an upper-end area of Denver. They never met me. And for people that have the good life like that, they look in on a guy like me and they just go, no way. It's sad, but it's true. When I was in Hong Kong, I've said this before. A Chinese woman told me, it wasn't in regards to me, but she said, even here, no money, no honey. That in Hong Kong culture, the Chinese have been conditioned. A cosmopolitan, well-known city like Hong Kong, why would it surprise us that they've inherited the same infective disease that we see running epidemic here? I was thinking about our automotive culture, how it's changed the face of America. Anybody see the movie Cars? Lightning McQueen, Mater, all that? The backdrop of that was what used to be Route 66. I've been on quite a portion of that. You can go through those areas, abandoned gas stations, towns, tumbleweeds, cactus, yards filled with junk, old rotting school buses and old 50s cars with the windows busted out, the paint long gone and rusty shells sitting in the Arizona hot sun or the California hot sun. And Route 66 goes all the way to Chicago. Once bustling, cutesy, historic, nostalgic little towns. But with the creation of the interstate and more fuel economy and bigger gas tanks, America said, we're done with cute. Daniel talks about, at the end of the book, it says, go your way, Daniel. For the last days, men will run to and fro and knowledge will increase. And isn't that where we're at? There's no more joy in the journey. Now it's let's get there now. Instant gratification. Pacific goes back to the old steamships, where getting there was half the fun. That the voyage out sea, for me, I wouldn't want it to end. Of course, I might change my mind if I'm leaning over the rail, puking my guts out because of seasickness. But back then, people traveled, and people enjoyed the journey to get there. When the Saudi princes in Hudson, Colorado, the Saudi princes were buying railroad cars and having them transformed interior-wise into gold-plated faucet handles, a recycling system that even recycles the human waste and turns it into drinking water, beautiful passenger cars that they will sail to the end of the railroad line, put on a ship, and take back home. And when they come to visit America, they want to take a train ride and will hook up to a regular train. Big money to do that. That though it's exquisite and lavish, they want the journey in the midst of elegance and look out their rolling window at American scenery and talk and enjoy. As I've told viewers on the school bus, you be consistently nice, you give the kids candy for being good, and 9 out of 10 girls will not even say thank you. In fact, 9 out of 10 girls, oh, I want that one instead. It's free, lady. If you expect me to accommodate 60 kids on a bus and can I take your order, please, guess again. We're a thankless culture. We're an unappreciating culture. We like to laugh at misfortune. You watch a lot of videos on YouTube that have hot views, and there's people that get off on other people's misfortune. Type in 2 women fighting and look at the number of views for that. Guys and girls, get off on that stuff. The culture of loneliness has its own price tag. That people will tell you Yeah, it's better to be alone and serve God. Yeah. If you don't have a besetting sex drive getting in the way of that, then there is a battle. Because I meet most American women that go, you would not want to live in the same building with that chick. No way, siree Bob. If only Pacific could be a eunuch or a monk for God and be so single-minded, focused devotion on Christ only and not be beset, beleaguered, hassled, harassed, nagged by my own biology. Be not conformed to the patterns of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Not always easy when you have biological yearnings. Go to an event. And people are funny. When you're alone, you're not going to get greeted pleasantly. Whenever I've been with a woman on a date, whether it's a black or the Korean gal, people tend to come out of themselves more and will smile, hi, chit-chat with us. But when I'm by myself, not going to happen. And often you'll find it's some guy who's got some same-sex desires going on. When you get older, you start believing the truth more, unless you've buried your head in the sand. That if you were watching my channel says, I don't agree with your Christian beliefs, I'm an atheist, I will pay for a trip to the Philippines where I live because you deserve it. Life's been unfair to you. Complimenting me about my intellectualism. I'd love to sit down and talk with you. I'd love for you to come out and visit me. I'm like, wow, that's generous. That there is that part of me that says somebody's going to pay for a trip overseas? Oh, yes. And I look down his interests in his videos. Subscribe to the Thailand gay thing. Subscribe to this. Subscribe to that. Lady boy here, lady boy there. And I'm going, yep. And you take advantage of that and you get a plane ticket and you go down. He'll expect favors from you. Pacific. No, thank you. But I wrote him. I said, you know what a generous offer. Nobody's giving me that. Let me just ask you straight up. Do you have designs on me or is this purely pure? If somebody was being upright, say, I'll give you a plane ticket, you go wherever you want. That our culture is such that when somebody offers something like that, we've been conditioned to believe there's a string attached somewhere. There's a motive somewhere. That typically only men offer such generosity to hot-looking women. We've been accustomed to that. How many hot-looking women in America have gotten to where they are and gotten a good life they have simply because of their looks, and somebody who is so affected by their lust for that woman will give her the world on a platter. It's true. In this culture, men like me have to work very hard. The average guys. The unsung heroes. The ones that stock the stores and the shelves at Walmart. The ones that drive buses, trucks. The ones that fix your plugged up toilet. In the media culture, continues to create discontent, continues to hang out there in our face, the nice houses, the trophy wives, the hot cars, the Vin Diesel man. And little by little, the message is drilled into us. You're no good. You're not like this. Filipinos I know that live overseas have a distorted view of this country. Our Hollywood is piped over there and they see that stuff and they think, wow, if I live there, I can have that house. And no. Number one, you're a domestic helper. You're not going to earn that kind of money to buy that mortgage. And sadly, I remember years ago meeting a woman who was drop dead gorgeous, pulled up in an excursion, let her kids out. I don't even know her, and she immediately comes up, hi, starts talking to me. Took my son to reading time at the library back when he was a little tot. And while librarian's reading stories to all the little ones, I'm chatting with her, and she says, I'm actually a trophy wife. My ears perked up, and she says, I'm married to a man that he makes big money. And he only married me to look good at his side. She goes, he bought me this excursion and just gave it to me. I said, do you love him? She said she did. And I don't believe she had the hots for me. There's no way in heck that a woman of that caliber would fiddle around with me. But she wanted to talk to me. And I believe the reason why is because in her world, she sees a lot of phony baloney. A culture of plastique, of ingenuineness. And she looks at me and says, boy, you can't get any more real than that, dude. Jeans and a t-shirt. Saw her a few times over the course of the summer, and she'd always say, hey, how you doing? Interesting. Let me remind my viewers that a lot of those men that make big money, they don't have love either. Their money bought them a woman, but not their heart. And all those hot-looking women out there that the media culture parades in front of our eyes that they got it so good, please, let me kindly remind you of Whitney Houston and her lovely daughter end up taking their lives. Why? Because fame and fortune and success and stardom doesn't give you the love that you need, doesn't give you the security you need. Oh, Pacific wish she had a ton of money. People ask, what would you do? I said, well, shoot, I'd leave the country. I'd go simplify right now. Most Americans I know would buy a McMansion and a McHummer and a Mc everything and supersize it, please. Just for the vanity of showing off and for everybody they know, whether those people care about them or not, and go, look at me, ha. And if I had money like that, the first thing I'd want to do is, shoot, I don't want anybody to know this. I'm running. I'm hiding. I'm not even going to give 2 weeks to my employers. I'm just going to say, due to circumstances beyond my control, I got to tell you I won't be back anymore. See ya. I wouldn't tell anybody what I was doing. I'd book a flight and I'd be out of here in less than 2 weeks. Anywhere. And only after I got to the other side would I tell somebody, well, I've relocated. Really? What are you doing? Well, I'm just none of your business, but I'm here. These people that win the big Powerball lottery payouts. Wow. $300 million. And then they blast their name all over the TV, and all of a sudden relatives never talk to them and says, "Hi, remember me?" Hands out. I want to talk about something, a little news bit. The culture of a spying government. Somebody in Kentucky, a drone was flying over his yard, and not just flying, but hovering quite low. He went out and got one of his shotguns, something, and shot it, and down it went. It was a few minutes later, knock at his door, and some very angry people said, "You're going to have to pay for this." And the Kentucky guy was arrested. Now, I admit, part of me says, why do people have a right to fly that stuff over your yard and hover 10 feet above it? Do we not have right to the airspace directly over our property? By the way, you do. Up to a point. Downtown Denver, an old historic Catholic church. I believe it's Catholic, or maybe it's Episcopalian. I don't know, with a big stone with the Gothic arch, the whole thing. Remember, years ago, my boss was driving me home. I said, "Now, how come that skyscraper goes up and then goes right over, has a bump out way above the roof of that church and goes up?" He said they actually purchased the airspace from that church. I said, "Wow, you can do that?" And he says, "Sure you can." But do you notice homeowners in America are getting kicked in the groin? I don't believe anybody should have a right to spy on you unless you're doing something you're not supposed to. Drones hovering over your backyard, yeah, I'd be a little concerned. I'd call the government and say, "Get this thing out of my yard, please. It's an invasion of my privacy." What would be the difference between that and me sending some sort of mobile flying device that goes in the window of the White House and parks right over Barack Obama's bed to be a fly on the wall there? Of course they wouldn't like it. Interesting. And then the dentist who shot the lion. Now, I didn't read the whole story. I'm assuming that was the lion they saw running around outside Milwaukee or Madison or something. The part that I did catch was one of my viewers wrote me and said, "Did you know this dentist who killed that lion is getting death threats?" So when Pacific talks about pet obsession and Americans laugh and mock and ridicule me, I'm validated that I'm standing right where I need to be when I see that. Somebody killed a lion. I don't know all the story. Maybe he felt threatened, maybe whatever. The authorities couldn't catch it. And this lion's being like Bigfoot and showing up all over the place. An escaped lion, that is. I mean, if I had a yard and this thing got in my yard, I'm not going to try to grab a net and be peaceable with it. I probably would have grabbed a pistol and said, "Whoa, that lion's not cool. It's in my yard." What's wrong with this picture when people make death threats over a lion running loose? It could cause serious harm and damage. And dog owners who bring their dogs in areas they shouldn't, and the dog bites somebody, and they say, "Oh, I'm sorry." No, you need to pay for that. It's okay to make death threats against somebody because he shot a lion. But if people stand outside Planned Parenthood with pictures of aborted babies, they don't like that. Our culture is twisted. Our culture is not thinking at all the way it's supposed to be. Pacific is affected by the culture. Pacific has compromised because of the culture. Pacific, that I became a Christian later in life, but it doesn't matter. I've watched Christians born and raised in Christian homes. They're more guilty of being politically correct than I am. True story. And as my friend in Barbados would say, full stop. So, born and raised in a Christian home, does it have an advantage? No. But they may claim that they don't struggle with immorality and all that. Well, good for you. But you're cliquey. You discriminate against people. You think you're a little closer to God than everybody else. And you're really not reaching anybody. I marvel at the fact that God uses me in spite of myself, that God uses me even when my motives weren't pure and right. God is merciful. That's all I can say over and over. God is merciful. He is extremely merciful. His mercies are new every morning. But don't miss it. There was culture in the Old Testament, and they were affected. Lot says, vexed with the filthy conversation of the world. For his time, Lot was an extremely liberal city. That if they'd have been into the gay rainbow, they'd be flying it all over the place down there. But Lot was affected too. His own daughters get him drunk, and they take turns having sex with him. And they created people that ended up being one of the ites in the Old Testament that was constantly a thorn in Israel's side. It's sad but true that when we do something and step outside God's will, there's consequences that we may never even get to realize, but that may be very injurious to people far removed from your sinful act. I submit to my viewers that Ishmael is a prime example of this. Huge oil prices, embargoes, wars, Middle East conflict, Islam, all of that, all the result of a man born out of wedlock, born under Hagar, who basically, Sarah says, sleep with my handmaid. Let her be your whore tonight. Child growing up, kicked out by his own father because Sarah said, I don't want him around. And the Bible says, every man's hand will be against you and your hand will be against every man. And we have that going on in the Middle East right now. By the way, if you're Native American and you live up in Alaska, now you can go to Russia without a visa. They just opened that. You can go travel. I think they set up to 90 days. No visa. But if you're an American, can't. It's interesting to realize that Alaska was bought for chump change from the Soviets before the Cold War. Alaska was sold to us. And I'll bet you that the Soviets regretted it. Especially when the massive era of stockpiling weapons began. Just think how much sweating they could have made us do. And Canada sitting right there in what is Alaska. Wow. America's got its problems, but it's not hard for me to see that God sometimes did things to protect us, even though we're kind of stupid sometimes. We could go on about the culture, but the culture has had its effect on us. We hear things, we're exposed to things. Exposure changes us. When we're exposed to things, images, music, lyrics, put downs, we start. That when I went into a chat room years ago, and a woman was calling everybody a tart, I remember back then, I said, wow, that's not very Christ-like. Oh, shut up, Pacific. And I saw her type LOL, LOL. And man, these people are rude. That same woman would say, Jesus has my back. I remember thinking, no, he doesn't. And guess what? There are times when Pacific says, people are so retarded. Do not let the world squeeze you into its mold. Be transformed by the renewing of your mind. We got to put our face in the Word. We got to tune out some of this and turn off some of this stuff, but it's hard. But it's Friday. And Friday culture sometimes is a good thing. 2 days off, end of the work week. Yeah. We could go on and on. But culture has more bearing on us than we realize. Have a good weekend, everybody. This is Pacific signing off. Bye-bye.